Hey folks, welcome to a brand new edition of Smart Money. Now the biggest headline this week undoubtedly was the meteoric rise of the Bitcoin. Just take a look at this. The Bitcoin hit a record high of $40,000 this week. And look at that. I mean, it's doubled in a month. So today we decode the breathtaking journey of the cryptocurrency and answer all of those questions in your head about the Bitcoin. Is it still worth a buy? Is it legal? What are the risks? How do you trade it? And is it a scam? These are all the questions that we've got through the course of the week. Let me introduce the guest on my show today. Nischal Shetty is the founder of WazirX, India's largest cryptocurrency exchange trading platform. Nischal will do a complete end-to-end explainer for us on this mysterious asset class. Nischal, thank you so much for being with us on the show. And ever since I sort of put out on social media that we're going to be doing this episode on cryptocurrency, I got bombarded with questions. So let me start from the top, right? Because there are so many people who feel that they've missed the bus. Tell us a little bit about what is the cryptocurrency, what are different types, how do I trade it as an Indian, and have I missed the bus?
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me on the show, Sonia. I think the first thing, so whenever people ask me what's a cryptocurrency or what is Bitcoin, I like to give a simple example. So think about you today. If you wanted to make an online money transfer to your friends, you have to instruct your bank to make the money transfer. Then your bank makes that transfer to your friend. So what's happening in this online money transfer is that you are involved, your bank is involved, and your friend. So that's a three-party system. But if you were to do the same thing offline, you would just hand over a 100-rupee note to your friend, and that's the transfer that happened between you and your friend. That's called a peer-to-peer transfer. In Bitcoin, the innovation of Bitcoin is that it made that cash transaction possible online. So today when you send a Bitcoin to your friend, it's just between you and your friend. There's no third party involved. And this innovation is what has given rise to this meteoric, last 10 years of meteoric rise for Bitcoin is the whole fact that there's such a great innovation where a third party is not needed for transactions between two people. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Now on top of that, there are so many applications that you can build, which we'll talk about through the show.
Okay, so I think the first thing that you said is there's no third party involved, but that's where the questions arise, right? I mean, is it even legal? That's the most popular question that I got, because people are afraid to put their money into something where there is no regulation, there's no body that regulates it. So on the legality aspect, I mean, what would you want to clarify?
Yeah, I think this confusion about legality comes from the fact that there was in between from 2018 to recently till March 2020, there was a banking restriction on cryptocurrencies. So people thought that that was a ban, but that was not a ban, that was a banking restriction, which again the Supreme Court ruled against it. So now there's no such restriction as well. So it's perfectly legal for you to buy Bitcoin. In fact, the fact that we are running our exchange WazirX in India is testament to that it's legal for you to buy or sell crypto.
Okay, so guys, a big yes here. It is legal for you to buy or sell any kind of cryptocurrency, right? Is it regulated? No. Will it be regulated? Maybe. So that is another issue, right, that people face. I mean, there's no regulation. Why should I invest my money? What would you want to say there?
Look, Sonia, the thing about if you look at technology as a whole, usually technology comes first and then the regulations come. And that's true of anything that you use today. Every technology that touches your life, it has first come to you and then the regulators come in. So I would say the same story is being played out in the whole crypto ecosystem, where crypto is just ahead in terms of technical progress. And I think over time the regulators will come in. And it's a good thing if regulations come later, because then the regulators can understand what's the right way to regulate. You cannot regulate something unless it's in the hands of people and people use it. So I think right now it's an unregulated asset class, but eventually, definitely, I believe that the world and India in general is going towards regulation.
Okay, so the world is going towards regulation. Hopefully, it will come to India as well. Now, I must mention at the onset that you run an exchange, right? A trading platform of bitcoins and of cryptocurrencies. So, in a sense, your view is a bit biased. So, I just want to put that on board for people watching here. Let's go back to the different types of cryptocurrencies. We keep talking about Bitcoin and how it's hit 40,000. There's also Ethereum, which, one of my colleagues was telling me has gone up 80% in the last 1 month. If one had to start afresh, what would you recommend? Which is the cryptocurrency that is perhaps the safest, and what is the difference?
Look, hands down, Bitcoin, it's not just it's the oldest cryptocurrency and the first ever crypto. So I would say that and it's not just me recommending, it's data. The data says that almost 90% of people, they buy Bitcoin as their first cryptocurrency. So that's seen as like the entry point from not owning any cryptocurrency to owning your first cryptocurrency. It's usually Bitcoin. Followed by Bitcoin, what happens is once people understand what Bitcoin is and what the crypto ecosystem is, then they get into exploring more ways. You know, it's like you play that first video game and then you're bored and then you want to find more new ways of exploring stuff. And that's the same thing that's happening in the whole ecosystem of cryptocurrency. And that's where Ethereum and all the other cryptocurrencies come in, and each has its own use case. So it's not like you're not buying a competition to Bitcoin or something. Each has their own utilities and own use cases. So what you need to do is you need to research before you buy. And if you think that the use case is something that would be used in the future, then you would probably go and buy those different cryptocurrencies.
Okay, so you did see the different cryptocurrencies on your screen as well. Bitcoin everyone knows about. There's Ethereum, there's EOS, there's Cosmos. It just flash for you in a bit. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions that we've been discussing, right, Nischal? One is, of course, is it legal? You cleared that out for us about the regulation, etc. The other thing is whether the most popular line came from Bill Gates, where he called it a Ponzi scheme. How would you want to react to that? And what are the other misconceptions that you generally get asked? And I mean, if you'd want to sort of debunk those myths.
Sure. I think the most asked is usually the legality aspect, which we've cleared. It's completely legal for you to buy in India. Talking about Ponzi scheme or large, I would say, known names talking negatively. If you look at this whole innovation that happens, usually the early movers are in small numbers and they're positive, but the rest of the world is more or less negative about it. I was just looking at recently, SpaceX is making a lot of noise about innovation in the whole space exploration, but a long time back, Neil Armstrong in fact said that commercial space exploration may not be a good idea. So I think there are misconceptions in the beginning, but eventually once you go deeper, you will realize that new technology needs time to be understood. So I think this is just that timing where maybe and it's the same with the internet. Early days of internet, parents used to tell their kids don't sit on the internet. And today, knowing that large internet companies are built, parents want their kids to get into computers early on, maybe even in school. So I think the same will happen with cryptocurrencies. Maybe 5 years down the line, we'll see everyone getting into it early on rather than being late entrants to that.
But for people who are going to ask you, I mean, I'm sure you're getting a lot of questions now that, cryptocurrencies has come into the mainstream at 40,000 plus on the Bitcoin. Nischal, hand on heart, don't you think prices are getting pushed up artificially? I was reading a report where CoinDCX is actually shutting down a lot of fraudulent accounts because there's a lot of pumping and dumping of the Bitcoin that's happening. Do you think it's safe at these prices for an average retail investor to buy Bitcoins?
Look, if you look at the history of Bitcoin, the good thing that when you want to look at the price is you have a 10-year history of Bitcoin, and there's always a peak, and when the peak hits, people think that it's too overpriced maybe, and then there's a correction, but then after a 3 to 4 years gap, there's always a next peak, and history shows that the subsequent peaks are always far greater than the previous one. So maybe today at this point, when we look at a $38,000 or a $40,000, that might look like a lot, but 4 years, 5 years down the line, when more people get involved and when more use cases come up, this might seem like one of those small blips in the whole big picture. So I think if you're looking at a long-term view, I don't think you have to worry. Short-term, there will definitely be fluctuations, and that's how the crypto ecosystem is trying to find the right price for Bitcoin. So in the short term, there will be, I would say, a lot of fluctuation, but in the long term, it's all a matter of, I think 4 to 5 years for these peaks to be overtaken.
Okay, that's important. So you're saying, folks, don't drop your jaw with this kind of move that you're seeing. It perhaps could be the start of a big upcycle in the Bitcoin. Is that what you're saying?
See, it's hard to say what direction it would go because honestly, no one's seen what happens in a cycle like this. But like I said, when we look at, let's say, the last two peaks, there's been a 5x to 10x increase from the previous peaks. So will it again replicate or will it change direction? It's very hard to say.
Okay, all right. You know what? We have plenty of questions, and in fact, as we speak, we're getting a lot of queries on our social media platforms as well. We're going to try and address all of them. Slip into a very short break. We continue our discussion on this eye-popping move in the cryptocurrencies on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Smart Money. I think this is our most watched episode up until now because we're getting inundated with a lot of messages on the Bitcoin, a lot of your queries as well. We are speaking to Nischal Shetty, the founder of WazirX, which is a cryptocurrency trading platform, an exchange platform. And he was telling us before the break that, don't be shocked by this move to 40,000 on the Bitcoin. It could just be the start of a big upcycle. Now, we're getting a lot of questions, so I'm going to toss them straight to you, Nischal. What is the transferability of Bitcoin? So I guess what they're trying to ask is whether it can be used to purchase anything. If I own Bitcoins, can I purchase something with it? Or is it an asset class like realty? I mean, what do I do with my Bitcoins if I can't use it as a payment option?
Look, I think, if you wanted to understand the basic use case of Bitcoin today, it's seen more as a store of value. In a world where there's rapid inflation, what do people do? They need to get into asset class which is deflationary. So gold is one, and Bitcoin seems to be emerging as the whole digital version of gold, simply because it has just 21 million supply, which is fixed. So people see that as one of those options for them. Instead of just being in, let's say, their fiat currency, they want to move to currency asset which is deflationary. So Bitcoin is seen as that asset class, I would say. a store of value where people want to probably hedge their risks against inflation. That's usually the biggest narrative around Bitcoin today.
Okay, so is it accepted as a payment form in many places? I know in India it is not just yet, but what about globally? I mean, where all is it accepted? Is it used for remittances? What if I buy a Bitcoin, what all can I use it for?
Yeah, so when it comes to payment, there are quite a few countries where it's accepted. I think Japan has been one of those early movers in this space where Bitcoin is accepted as payment. Then there are quite a few credit card, debit card providers who accept Bitcoin as your underlying asset for you to use then your card anywhere you want. In terms of, I think the remittance part that you said, that's a very solid use case of Bitcoin, because when we were talking about like a peer-to-peer transfer, today for remittances you'll realize there are multiple middlemen involved, and usually the data says that people lose about 8 to 10% of their remittance money by the time it reaches them. Whereas if they use Bitcoin, they don't lose anything because their near and dear ones can directly transfer it to their wallet. So that's seen as a huge mover in the remittance space. It's still early days, but I think it's emerging as a strong player over there.
Okay, emerging as a strong player as far as using it as a payment tool is concerned, and some countries like Japan have already started. We are getting a lot of questions on what the biggest risks are that are associated with buying a Bitcoin. I think the most popular one is, what about custody of my Bitcoin? If I'm making money, and I'm sure a lot of people who've bought Bitcoin even 2 months ago are sitting on a lot of wealth, right? Should I leave the Bitcoin with the exchange? Is it safe there, or should I sort of transfer it into a physical form or into a paper form? I don't know. I mean, what about safe custody of the Bitcoin?
See, I think that's the beauty about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. The first thing is you have a choice. You have a choice whether you want to self-custody it or you want a third party to custody. Now, self-custody, I think the things that you have to take care is you don't lose your wallet or your private key. But if you're going to go for a third party custodial, you have to make sure that because it's an unregulated market, there's n number of custodial products out there. So you have to make sure that you trust the service provider. And I usually recommend people that look into the backgrounds of the founders or the teams and how long that product has been in the market. Don't simply just move your Bitcoin to, like, say, something that you found on the top search result of Google. Ask your friends and family, understand what are the products that have been in the market, and then you can custody it with a third party. But yeah, both have their own downsides. When you do a third-party custody, go for two-step, authorization and all the other. Don't share your password with anyone. So those are the standard risk, I would say, profiles that you should look at.
Okay, similar to what you do with other asset classes, right? But at WazirX, do you guys sort of, is there any strict mechanism in which you prevent fraudulent accounts? I mean, is there any KYC that that you enforce? How do you make sure that there is no artificial inflation of the price?
Right. So right from day one, and though point in, if you look at it, there's no regulation, no one has to, but right from day one at WazirX, what we made sure is that we would ensure there's KYC for every customer. The benefit of that is you end up building a very clean ecosystem in India, and that was very, very necessary, because tomorrow when regulation comes in, we can show to our regulators that we are already following certain standards that usually are not necessary. But when you do that, you're creating a clean ecosystem. So this fraudulent accounts and stuff, we take care that no one without KYC can trade on our platform. So that keeps the ecosystem clean, and we'll continue to do that. In fact, one of the things is as part of Internet and Mobile Association of India, we are coming up with a code of conduct so that not just one exchange in the country, but any player in the ecosystem can adhere to those set of rules in the absence of regulation today.
Okay, you know what, the Bitcoin has really come into its own. I just want my director to pull up the previous plate about JP Morgan's view on the Bitcoin. Way back in 2017, JP Morgan labeled the Bitcoin a fraud currency. And now in I think 3 years, it says Bitcoin will rise at the cost of gold. As Nischal was saying, it's perhaps the new digital gold. So, well, this is how opinions change, right? Following the ticker perhaps. The final question, I don't think we have too much time, so I'm going to take one last question, Nischal. Because it's at 40,000, a lot of people are asking me, what is the basis of the valuation of a Bitcoin? Is it purely demand supply? Because I heard you mention earlier, there are only 21 million Bitcoins, and as we know, Bitcoins are mined, so there will be limited supply. Is it purely demand supply because of which the valuations are so high, or is there something else at play?
No, you're right. It's purely demand and supply because Bitcoin is limited and it's a deflationary asset class. Everyone knows that there will never be more than 21 million. And out there are over 7 billion people on this planet. And maybe right now 50 to 60 million people have participated in the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. So the value that you see today is the value that is placed on the demand by these 50 to 60 million people. Now the thing is, in the next, let's say 3 to 5 years, if this increases, the number of people into the Bitcoin ecosystem or crypto ecosystem grows to, let's say, 100 million, 200 million or 300 million, accordingly the prices will have to appreciate because there's not enough, there's no new supply coming in, and the limited supply has to be distributed, and that's where it leads to a price rise. And this is a global price. Bitcoin's liquidity is global. It's not limited to only one geography. So that's the best thing about this.
Okay, one last word from your end, because we've completely run out of time. At 40,000 today on the Bitcoin, where do you see it 2 years from now? Your best bet.
Sonia, I think I look at I would say 5-year cycles, and I believe, but again I don't want to time it, but I believe that Bitcoin will cross $100,000.
Oh,
maybe
wow.
it's 2 years, 5 years. I don't know the timeline, but I believe it will happen.
Okay, all right. So that's Nischal Shetty of WazirX saying the Bitcoin at $40,000 today could cross $100,000 in the next 5 years. But perhaps you want to take that with a pinch of salt because he does run a cryptocurrency exchange. Nischal, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for debunking a lot of myths on the cryptocurrency and telling our viewers what they should be doing in case they miss the bus. With that, it is curtains down on another infotaining episode on Smart Money. We'll be back with a brand new episode next week.